And as a prayer request, that the scales will drop from the eyes who are persecuting the oppressed and will bless them instead. You know what? On that note, I want to share with you a thought that I had. And there's been a lot of people out there recently. Christy Noam did it a few weeks ago, where she talked about Antifa and how Antifa is this and that, and they're well funded, and they're incredibly incredibly networked community of people. And then she compared them to gangs, and she compared them to international terrorist organizations. Excuse me. And then of course, just before this weekend, and actually during the protests, we heard a lot from Republican politicians talking that this was a I Hate America rallies, were I Hate America rallies, and that this was unpatriotic, and all these other different things about the No Kings protests. And then Carolyn Levitt, she is the president's press officer, chief propagandist. She takes all the interviews. She was asked recently by a reporter who decided that Hungary would be the place where Trump and Putin would meet, and she said, your mother, your mama, or something like that. Anyhow, but she too came out and said some really, really crazy things about the Democratic Party, mainly not only the Democratic Party, but the constituency. She said the main constituents of the Democratic Party, basically she compared them to terrorists and to criminals and to illegal aliens. That's who they are. Not that they work for those groups, but the constituency of the Democratic Party is this group. Now, the reason I bring this up comes back a little bit to Amanda's prayer request here, because this language is about inciting persecution. This language is about inciting fear towards that group, towards. So let's take, if we're thinking just specifically thinking left-right, that language is about convincing the right that they should be afraid of the left. It's about convincing the right that the left is degenerate, that the left is dangerous, that the left hate the right, that the left are out to get people. Like it's about villainizing the left. They're showing their fear of the left, but they're using language which is, well, they're using really, really destructive and harmful language. And one of the things I was thinking when I was reading this, it was a passage from Matthew, very popular passage. I think we talked about it last week, because we talked last week about how just because someone hates you doesn't mean it's because you're on the right path. Just because if as a Christian someone hates you doesn't mean you're following Jesus. It could just be that you're being a jerk. Well, that passage sort of comes up again in this situation. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, who were the prophets? Well, the prophets were people that God sent into the world to tell the people of the world, in particular the leadership of the world, of God's people, to knock it off. You're doing the wrong thing. You're hurting people. Stop hurting people. These are my people. These are my children. Why are you hurting my people, my children? Knock it off. You need to behave in different ways. You need to love one another. You need to take care of these people that I've put in your kingdom. You need to take care of these people that you call servants. You as king, as queen, you as leadership, you as a religious leader, you have to look after all those people that I've given you care over. Right? That was the prophets came. The prophets came calling for justice, calling for equity, calling for inclusion, calling for provision, calling for calling for leadership to do their job to take care of those within their borders. That's what the prophets did. Fast forward to no kings. Were those people not exercising their First Amendment right? But in doing so, were they not acting as prophets? You need to take care of people inside your borders in a just, merciful way. Yes. You need to take care of the people within your borders, the people, all constituents, not just the people who elected you. You need to take care of the people of this nation. You need to take care of the people living within these borders in a way that is righteous. That's what they were doing. And yet you see this kind of talk. They're terrorists. They're Hezbollah. They're MS-13, 14, 15. They're worse. They're like MS-22. They're like they're 8 times worse than MS-13. Right? They're illegal aliens. They are criminals. Violent criminals. Those frogs, oh sure, they look all cute and fluffy in their inflatable costumes, but you know underneath there's a great big sharp pointy teeth. Now, this is usually the time where I say something along the lines of, we shouldn't call people names. I'm not going to do that this time. This time, despite my idealism and despite my naivete, I'm going to say we should rejoice. You should rejoice. When these people are calling you names, when these people are launching these accusations against you, rejoice. They're afraid. They're afraid of you. They're terrified of what you represent. They're terrified of the fact that 7 million people got together, no violence. That 7 million people got together and in one voice spoke out for many causes, that there was no dissension amongst the ranks, that it was filled with joy and love and music and dance and song and big, cool, fluffy-looking, huggable frogs. That's terrifying to this crowd. They don't know what to do with it. And so their only tool, the only tool in their bag to deal with this kind of thing is to revile you. It's to try to knock you down a peg or two. It's to try to convince their followers that you are somehow dangerous, beyond dangerous, that you represent the end. No. You're doing this for the right reasons. You're doing this because you're asking for justice and you're asking for equality and you're asking for inclusion. You're doing this because you're asking Congress to step up and do their job as opposed to just, giving it all to the big guy who sits in that Oval Office. These are righteous causes. You're doing this kind of thing. The voices at No Kings were speaking up, not because America has a king, but because they want to make sure that nobody ever tries to be king. They did it because they were speaking up to protect the Constitution. These are righteous causes. When people revile you and say all kinds of horrible things about you, against you, when people call you names and launch accusations, false accusations against you, because you're doing what is righteous, rejoice. Rejoice, for your reward is great in heaven. Don't shirk from this. And I would even say, don't be offended by this. I would say, don't see this as, oh my God, I can't believe how horrible they're being. Take this as a feather in your cap, as a badge of honor. No, I'm not saying that these terrorists or these terrorist groups or these organized gangs have any honor whatsoever. I'm not. But when they compare you to them, when they compare an inflatable frog to them. When they compare, My Little Pony or a unicorn or a group of nuns and priests and servers and lay leaders marching in the protest together under the cross. When they compare, a group of senior citizens playing ukulele. This land is our land. This land is your land. When they compare those kinds of people to the people they're comparing them to, rejoice. Rejoice because you've got them scrambling. Rejoice because in that moment you are absolutely on the side. You're on the right side. Rejoice and keep it up. Amen.